Peace. Welcome, everybody. My name is True Universal, 1/3 of One of God's Build. Here with my good friend Ashley. Been knowing each other since Northside Middle School. Ooh, that's a long time.
So over 20 years ago.
Over 20 years. And yeah, we're here because she asked me for a favor, and I obliged to interview her for her latest book, My Soul's Cry. It's a collection of poems on spiritual awakenings, heartbreak, change, grief, forgiveness, and love. It is now available for purchase. And where can we buy this? Where can people get this book?
So you can go on lulu.com or you can contact me directly if you would like a copy. The electronic copy is free and the hardcover version is $20. So if you want to support me, just reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at allmyloveam. That's allmyloveAYEM.
All right.
And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For helping me with this and being willing to interview me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is my first one, so I'm excited about it.
I'm excited too.
Bring out a different side of just, from just podcasts, and I'm just like, okay, let's expand some things. So what prompted you to put these poems together and actually be vulnerable to release it?
So last December, so almost a year ago,
okay.
This shift kind of happened in my life, and I just started to feel things on an even deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was kind of going through this spiritual growth and journey, everything started crashing down around me.
Right.
But my spiritual self was like radiating and rising while everything else around me seemed like it was just burning down to the ground. And I was initially excited for what was happening with me spiritually, but then because everything else that was going on, it kind of distracted me a little bit from that. And so it was like I couldn't fully enjoy that and embrace that because so many other circumstances were going on, and it just kind of took over a little bit, and I was just going through a lot. So my soul's cry was like a reflection of how I was feeling. I felt like I was crying from the inside out. I have never cried this much in my life, and this year definitely it was like the levees broke. And so my soul's cry is deep rooted grief, and I just needed a healthy outlet for that. And so the book is a collection of poems that kind of tells a story of that journey of releasing, and the changes that I was going through. So it was a lot, but I needed an outlet, and so I just got back into poetry, which was something I used to do since I was a little girl, and I just kind of haven't done it in a while. So it's like everything is kind of coming full circle again.
That's good. Appreciate these poems. This here, people, this is my copy. Signed and everything, it's my copy. Out of these poems, which one is your favorite?
My favorite will probably have to be either the first one or the last one. The Light or My Soul's Cry.
Okay, let's see. Let's read this one here.
Oh, you gonna read the poem?
Yeah, let's read The Light. Let's give these people a overview, a little brief of what they can expect in these collections.
Loud and clear. Go ahead,
For sure.
read it. Put on your best poet voice.
The Light by Ashley McBride. A bright white light takes over the present moment. Picking flowers, I stop. Looking over my shoulder, I see nothing but a bright white light taking over. I feel you, and I see you in the light. You are the light. I'm barely 6, but I know this is all right. In an instant, you came. In a moment, you were gone. I felt your presence so strong. I knew I was home. I didn't know you, but I knew I was safe. I knew I was protected by something I couldn't explain. The light, a bright white light. I wasn't afraid. You allowed the present reality to come back into my view, but you etched that moment in my memory. For a lifetime, that said, remember me. I picked more flowers and smiled with childish joy as I ran through life. It became a journey back to that light. A bright white light, take over again. Yeah, I can definitely.
That poem was actually about an experience I had when I was a little girl. I was between the ages of 4 and 6, and I was just literally outside of the house, just playing, picking flowers. I was that kid that picked flowers, played with bugs, all type of stuff. And I was just outside, and then it just got really bright, like a white light, and I felt this presence, but I wasn't afraid. And I never forgot it, and so it just, that experience always stayed with me. And then in different parts of my life, I've had experiences that just could not be explained, of how I survived something or how something happened. It had to be something supernatural. And I always felt connected to that. So I've always been a very spiritual person, but I felt like at this point in my life, it was elevating. Like I was going to a whole nother level spiritually, and I was excited about it. And I actually rededicated my life this year. So I did the baptism and everything in March. I just felt like I needed that covering. I needed that public display, like I'm here. It helped me to be more vocal. And in the dedication, I dedicated this book also to 2 churches, because I started going back to church 2 years ago. And I just felt called to be in church. And then when I started to go to a different church, I was able to become like more vocal, more open and expressive. I used to be like a quiet worshiper, and now I am like extroverted in my worship and my praise. I can't stop talking about it. I don't feel afraid to talk about it. And so it was like just like a shift for me, and it was a lifestyle change, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And through that change came a lot of losses. And so that poem just really talks about that time when I was a little girl. That's the moment that I first felt like I felt God's presence. I was in God's presence, and because of what I was going through, it was like I was calling that back again. Like I wanted to feel that presence and actually be in it and be a part of it and live my life in it. So the light is where like it began for me, as far as my memories can recall. And it was like something I was calling back now that I was in life, 34 years old and going through some changes. I wanted that light on me, and I didn't want it to leave.
When you can reconnect with yourself, reconnect with the divine, it's just like, this is what I've been missing. Didn't realize it, but it's like you said, full circle, and just like, I don't want to let this go no more, because it's like I feel wholesome. So I definitely understand. These poems, which one would you say was the most difficult to write?
The most difficult? None of them were really difficult to write, but the one that came in that I did last, that wasn't the last poem, but it was the last one that I actually wrote and put on the document, was Anger Me. And I feel like since December, like trying to really like overcome, everybody has like a thorn in their side. For me, it was like my temper, that anger for me. And I had changed in that way where I just wasn't responding to situations the same way. And it was the more soft, vulnerable side of me that was coming out. And the anger is just like, it was like gone in a sense. But the situations that I went through over the course of the year, I was angry about them, but I just didn't feel like I could show it, because it was like, I kind of looked at anger like, okay, I can't be angry. I don't want to be angry. And I had to learn to accept that anger is a part of life and it's a part of your healing journey. So I didn't want to connect with that part of me, but I needed to, because the sadness and the misery was becoming so unbearable, and I did not want to be sad and miserable anymore. And it was like, I'm okay. I have to feel this anger. It's okay for me to be angry about these situations because I'm not dealing with them in the way that I would have in the past when I was angry. So Anger Me is like where I'm pretty much disclosing a little bit more of what I actually experienced, the things that hurt me, that angered me, and I was angry about them, and I'm still angry about them. But I'm learning how to deal with my anger in a different way and accepting anger as normal and natural and just learning how to deal with the anger.
Right.
And so even though it's called Anger Me, it's an acronym.
Oh. I see it.
Ain't nobody gonna ever replace me, ever. And so that anger came from that feeling of being abandoned, you know, being left behind, being ostracized. And so that anger was like, no matter what y'all have done and who I am, you can't change that. Like, I'm always gonna be me. Even if that angers me or if it's angered other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay, because that anger isn't really anger. It's more about like that ego of feeling like I'm worthy enough, I deserve certain things. So that was more difficult in the sense of it took me a while to get that one on paper.
Yeah.
The other ones were just like easy flow to put them down, but that anger, it seems like I kind of avoided it for almost a year because it was literally the last poem added in. So it took a little while to really connect with that anger and actually talk about those things that happened that made me angry.
Okay. Because, you know, anger is actually a stage of grief that, you know, some people, like you said, don't want to connect with, deal with, and they think it's just like, you know, I just, you know, put it in the back of my mind, and then it's like something happens, and you're just like, now I'm here again. Like, I don't want to be here again, but it's just like, you ain't deal with it. You know, whatever you don't grow from, it's just gonna keep coming back. So, yeah, anger is one of those things. But it's a good way you chose to express it, and like you said, in a healthy way versus crashing out, you know, breaking some, destroying some, things like that. And, you know, probably wouldn't be sitting here if you would have crashed out.
Been there, done that. It doesn't really solve anything. It really doesn't. And like I said, I was on this journey. I was already being transformed. And so a lot of people would use my anger as kind of like a scapegoat for their misbehaviors. It's like we all got problems, right? But sometimes when people don't want to reflect on their own issues, they'll just project on you and make you the issue, not knowing like, well, something has to happen to cause someone to be angry.
Right.
People don't want to be angry. It's a reaction to something. And I think because I was trying so hard to be like, I'm not an angry person anymore, I just allowed myself to be in that sadness, and I really couldn't control it, because the next poem, Death is Deep, that opened up a lot, and I wasn't able to be angry. I was sad, I was broken, and it wasn't anything I could camouflage with anger. But once I got through that waterworks of sadness for all of those months, I realized that I'm angry about some of this stuff that happened, and because I'm angry, let me just get it out. But I needed to know, how do I get this out in a healthy way? So I just transformed it into a poem, and I'm like, this is gonna fit in my soul's cry, because I wasn't always just crying out of my hurt. I was also crying out of my anger, my frustrations of things not happening the way that I felt that they should, or not the way that I wanted them to. So it was just like very reflective, and like I said, it gave me that space to actually talk about what hurt me. Of course, there's still mystery there. There's certain things that I just won't give space for to talk about. But there are things that happen, and they're just between me and God. But the parts that I was willing to reveal, I allowed myself to do that, and I don't have any shame about that.
Okay. Since you've been on your journey, what scripture has been most resonating for you?
Jesus wept.
Why is that?
There was a point in a relationship that I was in, and they told me that I cried too much, and I couldn't relate to that, you know, because growing up with a dad who was strong and sensitive, I looked at people, if you can't cry, something's wrong with you. Like, I saw that healthy balance between masculinity and still being sensitive and emotional, and it not being an issue or a problem. So for the person I thought was my partner to tell me that when I'm not only going through my own spiritual evolution, but also dealing with their issues, and to tell me that I'm like crying too much, it hurt. You know, it was just totally invalidating. And so as I was, you know, going to church more, doing the Bible study more, and reading more, I loved the verses that talked about Jesus wept. And I was like, it felt so human. It felt like, okay, so it made my prayer life strong, because I felt like, well, I can't cry to people about it because they either don't know how to deal with it or they don't want to deal with it. So at least I have a space where I can come with all of me and it's not a problem. No one's gonna tell me that I'm too much or that I'm not enough for something. So Jesus wept is probably the most relating verse for me, because it just made me feel human and what I was going through, and people couldn't understand it. And sometimes we just want to see people be happy and just being well, that we kind of like just want them to get through that mess that they're in. And sometimes like it's no timetable for that. You have to just go through it, and you don't know how long that's gonna last. And you just have to go through it. And I feel like sometimes we don't always give people that space to go through things. We just want them to hurry up and get to the other side. And that can also be stifling and invalidating, and can kind of make you put back on that mask that you just took off. Because if I don't feel like I can really express myself and be vulnerable, then what do? I just either shut down, become a shell of myself, or I project myself in a way that's not authentic for me. So for me, it just made me double down in my faith. Like, okay, I don't need to run to people for my issues or what I got going on. It's great to have good people that you trust and are supportive and that get it, or people who just there to listen. But ultimately, it was like, no, come to me for any and everything. And you're always going to be safe, and you're always going to be protected, and you're always going to be provided for. So it was another way to help me, again, just go deeper in my faith, and realizing that not everybody's going to be able to understand and deal with what I got going on, and that's okay.
Humanity is very real. And like you said, you know, some people don't want to deal with it. You know, they may not have time for it. They may not know how to occupy or allow the capacity and space for humanity, because everyone is always moving so fast. You know, oh, I gotta go to work. Oh, I'm late for work. Oh, I gotta fix dinner. Oh, I gotta do it. And like they're just constantly overstimulated. And so then like the moment, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just like they got their own stuff going on. It's like, oh man, she doing all this crying. It's like that one straw. It's just like, oh, I can't deal with this chick. But it's just like you said, it's invalidating. Just like, yo, like you're supposed to be here for me. This is a space where I'm choosing to be vulnerable with you in, because vulnerability is trust. So it's like, I'm choosing to be open with you, but now you're showing me that I can't even trust you. And like you said, it's invalidating, and it's just it makes you want to shrink. It makes you want to withdraw into yourself. But it's just like, I'm being called to be in this space, and if you're not here for me, then it's just like, all right, you know, we gotta nip this in the bud, and you do your thing and I do my thing, and this is just another thing that I have to grieve on top of what I was already grieving. So I definitely.
The poem in there that talks about like the same people that you pretty much wipe their tears and rub their back and let them know that things are gonna be okay are the people who like turn their back on you.
Yeah.
But it's like it's your turn, so it's like not having that reciprocation. But it opened the door for me to nurture the relationships that were already in my life. And so, you know, like you said, grieving one, gaining another, but it's still that emotional pull that you gotta allow yourself to go through those deep waters. And I cried so much. When I went to visit Niagara Falls, I thought to myself, well, I'm glad that I feel like this isn't like my tears have been more than the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I cried rivers, and seeing the Niagara Falls, it was like, I'm glad I haven't cried that much. Yeah. But when I think about it now, I'm like, the Niagara Falls is like the perfect, you know, explanation if I could explain how much I felt like I cried this year. Go visit the Niagara.
I haven't been there.
It's beautiful.
I've been very
see it from the Canada side.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the side to see it from. And you'll understand that if you're on the Canada side seeing it.
Okay.
That is the side, just the way that the landscape is.
Yes. All right, so people, not the New York side, the Canada side.
Yeah, the New York side is kind of like seeing it from the back angle,
Okay.
in a sense. The Canadian side is like, you can see it. And you
Yeah.
see people on the New York side seeing what you're seeing, but they're seeing it from that
Right.
side. So it's the angle. So
Okay.
yeah, definitely see it from the Canadian
I'm
side.
gonna keep that on my bucket list. I haven't been there. Been everywhere else, just not there. Through this journey, what virtues would you say you gained while on?
Definitely courage,
Okay.
for sure. I've always considered myself to be a pretty honest person, and I just feel like it has doubled down
Yeah.
in this past year. So just being more vulnerable, more transparent, but definitely courageous and brave, because a lot of times you're gonna go through things alone. Just because everybody can't help you with what you got going on. It's
Right.
an individual journey that you have to go on, and everybody's not gonna stick around for that. Everybody can't come, and you have to learn how to walk alone, knowing that you're not really alone.
Right.
Like, so for me, like, the courage was killed almost 2 years ago. That opened up the floodgates. Like, I remember the day my sister called me, I was at work, immediately I started crying, and that really opened the door for like all of the tears.
Okay.
And I've dealt with death since I was young. My father passed away when I was a teenager. So I felt like I kind of got to a place with death where I was like, listen, this is a part of life.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And it didn't affect me the same way as several other people had passed in between that time from 2009 to now. But when my friend died, I don't even remember feeling that heaviness like that when my father passed away. And it could just be a different dynamic, different time of my life. I was in the streets, I was smoking weed all the time, so I wasn't even fully connected to myself. You know,
Yeah.
I was numb a lot and just going through life. And so this time around in life where I'm not living that way, I felt everything, and I felt like I was also grieving stuff from my past that I didn't even know that I was still affected by.
Yeah.
And so it, like, his death just kind of opened, like I said, it opened up the gates, the
Yeah.
floodgates, and I
Yeah.
was like, it just, everything since then. And when he died, 2 days, was it 2 days before or 2 days after? It's in the poem. A woman that we grew up with in my childhood, we called her Aunt April. She had passed away. Their deaths were 2 days apart. And that was crazy. She was a woman that whenever I saw her, like, she would lay hands on me. She would pray over me. I always felt so comfortable and loved in her embrace. So it was like stuff was happening back to back.
Right.
The offset to that was like at my friend's funeral, his colors were like green and
Okay.
white. At her funeral, her colors were orange and white, and orange and green are my two favorite colors.
Mhm.
So it just felt like everything was happening as it was supposed to, but it was just very like a lot in a
Yeah.
short amount of time. And so it just, like I said, I guess that was the thing that really helped me to deal with anger, because it was like all I could feel was sadness and grief.
Yeah.
That's all I could feel at that point. So that my soul's cries, like, it's really just how I was feeling at that time. Like, I couldn't feel anything else. And as I was healing, then I was able to move into this other emotion, which was brief stint, but I embraced it, the anger,
Yeah.
you know, and I got through that. And it's the joy I've been chasing after, because regardless of what emotional state I'm in, if I have the joy, it doesn't affect me the same way.
Gotcha.
I can look at it from a different perspective. But if I don't have that joy, that sadness is some deep sadness. That anger is some deep anger. But when you know that there's more for your life, there's more to you, you learn how to go, yeah, I'm sad and I'm still doing this. Yeah, I'm angry and I'm still doing this. So it's not something that actually like stops you from moving. Say the courage to do all of these things as I was going through so much grief, just to keep going the way that I did. I'm very proud of myself.
Yes.
Thankful for the covering and the protection, for sure.
Gratitude is the best attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I just like to say these days, because I have a lot of things that I'm grateful for. So I'm just like, Gratitude is the best attitude to project your longitude and latitude. Yeah, that's just my. While writing the book, did you say like a specific prayer? Like what, as you were like going through your journey and writing the book, or just in journey in general? Maybe the book is not even included in like it's like a certain prayer.
I pray daily, and I just always ask God for the strength, the joy, the wisdom, the courage. That's just what I ask for in like daily prayers.
Okay.
And for me in writing this book, my mom asked me like how long had I been working on it. I'm like, for at least 7 months.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever I felt that like, oh, I got this poem I need to write, I would just go ahead and write it.
Okay.
So whenever it hit, I would just write it. I didn't force myself to write anything. When I needed to take a break from it, I took a break from it. There was time that went by, a couple of months, that I didn't put any poem in there. And then again, when I felt like, oh, I have something that I gotta say, I made that poem, and it was effortless. It wasn't something I had to give a lot of thought to. It just flowed.
Okay.
So I just went with that when it actually felt like it was something I needed to do.
Right.
I didn't just like wake up and be like, okay, yeah, today we're making this poetry book and you're gonna write this stuff in here. It just came, and so that's why it took pretty much almost a year to really get here, because it was like literally a collection of poems from stuff that I was going throughout that time. So each poem, so as you read it, even though it's poems from start to finish, it tells a story. So that's why we start with the light and then we end with my soul's cry.
Okay.
So it tells a story.
Cinematic with it. Maybe see some videos.
I would love to do that. But the poems, they're pretty descriptive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we close out, is there anything that you would like to share with the people? Something that they can, take with them as they go through their grieving process and healing journey?
I would just like to say that it is absolutely okay and necessary for you to feel any and everything that you feel for you to heal. And if that looks like crying, if that looks like laughter, if that looks like more naps than usual, if that looks like taking more trips than usual, if that looks like doing anything that's just different for you, do it. Do what you have to do to heal, like the real healing. Don't just do stuff that's like numbing you. Do stuff that actually allows you to connect with what you feel, and don't be afraid of those tears. So many people are afraid to cry, and it's healthy to cry. This is why babies are so happy. They go through stuff, they cry, and then they're back at it like nothing even happened. We're the ones who are just always holding stuff in, and we're miserable and can't seem to bounce back from anything. So to anyone who's going on a journey of healing, or just grieving a loss, or just grieving from anything, allow yourself to feel and do what you need to do to heal. What you need to do, not what you want, what you need to do to heal, because it will be worth it in the end. I went on so many trips this year, and
yes, you did.
Financially, those weren't always the best decisions, but I have no regrets because I needed every single one of those trips.
Yeah.
And I cried on every single one of those trips. Even at my sister's bachelorette, I laid myself down in bed at night, because nighttime is like the trigger. Waking up in the morning and going to sleep at night. Those are the most difficult parts of the day sometimes. It used to be all the time, 24/7 was just difficult.
Mm.
But I just lay there at night and I'm crying my tears. But you know what? You get up to see another day.
Yeah.
And so I've just learned to say, look, it is okay to cry. Even I'm like, it's November. I'm still crying about this, and I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the grand scheme of things in your life, if I'm gonna live to, let's say, 90 years old, and I say, I spent 2 years of my life crying, I'm okay with that. Especially if the end result of that is me having joy and peace. I can invest that type of time.
Yeah.
So I know what happens if I don't allow myself to feel.
Right.
I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. I know what that does to me and to people around me. So I'm not willing to go back down that road. So if this is the path that I have to take in order for me to get to where I truly desire and am destined to be, then I'm willing to do it. Pave the way.
Before we close out, may you honor us with a prayer for the people at home that, may not know how to pray, or they may need some encouragement in prayer for their daily lives.
Praying is just talking. It's just talking about what you think and what you feel. And so, sure, I will close us out in a prayer.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Oh, most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for just giving us the ability to experience life that cannot happen without you. Life is very beautiful. Let us not take it for granted, no matter what trials and things that have come in our way in life that have hurt us, scarred us, wounded us, whatever. We can always find healing in you. God, I pray for any and everybody who comes across this video that they be filled with your spirit, your love, your grace, your mercy, your wisdom. God, I pray that anything that we do going forward is a reflection of you, and it encourages people to be the best version of themselves and to come and know you for who you are and what you are, and that you live in each and every one of us. And I just pray that we all get to experience that in this lifetime. Thank you for friendship. Thank you for creativity. Thank you for just the gift of life and love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate this so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm honored that you allowed me to do this for you and with you.
I hope you enjoy the book.
Oh, I know.
I hope you can do a post-book read review.
Oh, yeah.
And let me know what you think about it.
Yes. Definitely will do that.
But I appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good one. I'm Sure Universal, 1/3 of When the Gods Build. Our book here, The Art of Brotherhood, will be available for purchase.
When?
We haven't made it quite known yet, but it will be available.
Okay, well, keep us posted.
Definitely.
We need more brotherhood, and I appreciate you being a Black brother interested in some poetry and interviewing me. I just appreciate that so much. So I hope this encourages more men to get involved in literature and expression and creating and healing.
Yes.
So I appreciate it.
Next time you might be interviewing me about my collection of poems.
I would love to. I would love to.
All right. Well, peace to everybody. I have a great one.